I think it's important to emphasize novelty over nostalgia. I don't want to be playing essentially the same Pokemon game over and over again. I absolutely do want to go back to Sinnoh and every other region, but I want sequels, not remakes. Really show change over time rather than change for the sake of change. Pokemon can have variety, and I would love to see games that are considered main series and share a world with the other existing Pokemon games in an obvious way, but have completely different visual style, structure, premise, and story. Maybe you're even explicitly writing Pokedex information. Pokemon in the overworld is a must for the open world. Can you imagine having a battle in the actual overworld space that you encounter your opponent in? The differences between the two versions that are released together are too small to warrant continuing this tradition as it is. I need a game and a story that encourage me and reward me for exploring, for learning, for discovering. More surprises, more unexpected releases. Hi, Game Freak employee, or the Pokemon Company employee. You know, you really should introduce yourself in the comments or send me a DM on Twitter, because it's obvious that you're watching and I would just really like to know who I'm talking to. But yeah, I went into the Pokemon Presents last Friday with only one specific hope, that I would be surprised. And boy did they deliver. Pokemon Legends Arceus is almost everything I've been asking them to do, and I couldn't be happier about it. I don't even have very much to say about it other than yes! Yes! The premise of this game is perfect, and I can't wait to play it. I realize we've only seen a glimpse of what Legends will be, so it's impossible to know at this stage just how well it's gonna go. But my hope is that it will be the game that we all know that it can be, and that Legends will become its own series so that we can explore more significant moments from the history of the Pokemon universe, with even more diverse premises. Imagine being a researcher involved in the search for Mew and the creation of Mewtwo, or witnessing the fire that destroys the Brass Tower and the birth of Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. We could see Kalos before or in the immediate aftermath of the war, or Galar during the original Darkest Day. There are so many amazing possibilities. I haven't been this excited for the future of Pokemon games in a long time. The one thing that makes Legends not everything I wanted is the visual style. It does look good. From what we've seen, it does seem to both have way more character and be better executed than Sword and Shield. But the progressive loss of outlines is a big bummer. It was the most important element of my ideal Pokemon art style, so it does make me a little bit sad that the aesthetics of the franchise as a whole seems to be moving away from outlines. Maybe they just forgot to click the outlines checkbox for this trailer, but even if not, it's certainly not going to stop me from enjoying Legends. But Pokemon Legends Arceus will not be the only return to Sinnoh. We will first be getting the quote-unquote faithful remakes, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. As most of you know, I was not hoping that we would get actual remakes. I remember enjoying Diamond when I first played it in 2007, 2008, but it just really didn't stick with me. I don't think I ever replayed it, and I didn't even pick up Platinum until 2018 either, so I'm just not very attached to Sinnoh. But I know that a lot of you are, whether that's because you started with those games so you're nostalgic for them, or because the religious, lore, cultural elements of the franchise are what attracts you the most. So it's no surprise that remakes will happen. From what I've seen, the response to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl has been pretty mixed, but to me, I think they chose the right approach to these games. All previous remakes, from Fire Red and Leaf Green to Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, have had to balance recreating the original experience with updating the mechanics and adding fresh elements. But to be honest, that feels like a bit of a waste of energy. We know that, generally speaking, remakes have not performed as well as other main series games in terms of sales. And I can only imagine that Game Freak would be more interested in moving the franchise forward rather than retreading old ground. My point is that the Pokemon Company's decision to stick with a fairly faithful remake of Diamond and Pearl and hand the actual development responsibilities to a different studio takes that load off of Game Freak. Anyone can develop a remake because the basics of the game already exist. They don't need to be invented or even reimagined in the case of a more faithful remake. They only need to be recreated. And that frees up Game Freak to work on the games that only they can make. Instead of balancing tradition with innovation in a single game, we get the focus on tradition in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and the focus on innovation in Pokemon Legends Arceus. This doesn't mean that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl won't have any kinds of changes or updates. We already know that there will be quality of life updates, and honestly, those are sorely needed. So it's entirely possible that there will also be other changes. I fully expect there to be fairy-type Pokemon. I can see them making changes to the regional Pokedex, maybe incorporating some elements of Platinum storyline. Adding Mega Evolutions would feel fitting thematically. To be clear, I don't expect that many changes. I'm just saying I can see them going for it. But it's the kinds and extent of these changes that will really determine how interested I will be in playing these games. If it's just base Diamond and Pearl but with quality of life improvements, I'm happy for the people who want to relive Sinnoh or for those that haven't played those games before, but it's probably not for me.
It's for me though.
On the other hand, if there's enough changes to really shake up the experience, or even if it ends up being a hyper-casual take on Sinnoh, similar to what Let's Go was for Kanto, then there's a good chance I will pick it up. Considering Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are slated for late this year and Legends is for early next year, it really seems like they're not expecting the remakes to have a very long lifespan, so they very well might be more casual. But yeah, I don't really have very strong feelings. To me, remakes feel unnecessary nowadays, but I can understand wanting to introduce those stories to newer players. And frankly, the fan demand for remakes has to be a huge element in their decision. As for the visual style, which is the main thing I keep seeing people dunk on, to put it simply, I have mixed feelings, but I think it's fine. I love how closely they've maintained the overall look and the proportions of the overworld, including, yes, the chibi characters. It reminds me a little bit of Link's Awakening. But I think the games look too dark, like just a little bit more brightness would have been nice, not necessarily to the extent of like a Let's Go, but something in that direction. And again, the loss of outlines sucks. Especially because Gen 4 was so heavy on that pixel anime aesthetic with the thick outlines and sharp and well-defined shadows, especially on Pokemon and trainer battle sprites. Instead, we get smooth shading and no outlines, very similar to Let's Go, which isn't entirely unexpected, but is still a letdown. In the end, we've only seen a first glimpse into both Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and Pokemon Legends Arceus. There is probably a lot more that will still surprise us about both of these games, and I'm thrilled, especially for Legends. Thank you for watching, and thank you to my patrons for helping me make videos, especially luxury patron Ethan from Chicago. And remember, the next set of remakes will not be Unova. It'll be Johto. I'll see you in the next chapter.